ABC News in chaos right now. As we speak, executives are trying to finagle and figure out how they're going to actually put themselves together in this new media landscape, especially when ratings are terrible, especially when the president really doesn't appreciate the fact that you got all this negativity nonstop there on the air. Well, maybe it means you actually have to do something about the talent that's on the air. Maybe you haven't reflected the diversity of opinion that is so desired in the news business there at ABC News. Well, that's what's coming up right now as we speak. George Stephanopoulos, Donna Brazile, Chris Christie, and a few others are some of the names that we're hearing. Oh, don't forget Whoopi. Of course, Whoopi and Joy. Well, we've talked about that, but I have some more to say on that here for you today because there's a new survey out that really does spell the end of them. I'll tell you, here's the problem. Here's the problem. You cannot continue to operate a network that no one trusts. And the FCC knows this. This is why Brendan Carr sent that letter to the head of Disney, which owns ABC, of course, back in December, before Donald Trump even came into office, basically giving him a warning saying, you know what, buddy, nobody trusts you. Nobody in America trusts you. And if nobody trusts you, then what the heck are you doing on our FCC airwaves? So let me go to what Donald Trump put out over the weekend. This is on Sunday saying, what is fake news? ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos have low IQ commentator Donna Brazile on the show for. Wasn't she totally discredited when she gave crooked Hillary Clinton the questions to a debate? Remember that one, right? Remember when she was working for CNN? I'm telling you, I told you before, this is a political woman. She is not a journalist. She really shouldn't be a commentator, right, on a journalist show. But by the way, the journalist that actually heads up that show, he himself is a former press person for Clinton. I mean, what do you expect, for goodness sakes? This is bias all the way around. Wasn't she fired, he said, by fake CNN news, fake news CNN, for so doing? Indeed she was. So why would ABC News hire such a dumb retread? Don't forget Fox did it too. You know, he goes on to then slam sloppy Chris Christie and says, you know, this network, they paid me $16 million because of their inaccurate reporting. Now, you'd think they'd pay attention to more of this stuff. You'd think so. He's saying maybe they owe me more money. In other words, if they're going to keep saying lies, and if the bias is going to be so apparent. Now, I'm not saying you got to be a love fest over there, guys, okay? By no means am I saying that. But I would expect, as does he, that there is some neutrality and there's some effort to have both sides. But when Chris Christie is your Republican on the other side, I think you better do a little more scrambling. I mean, hey, when is Scott Jennings' contract coming up? Maybe you need someone like that that can actually fight back as opposed to a never-Trumper that's going to double down on anything anti-Trump. In other words, again, you're not getting the full picture. The American people aren't getting the full picture. And consequently, he's saying, why do we give them FCC airwaves? Why should we? In fact, hey, maybe we ought to charge them. Maybe we ought to charge them some licensing fees. You know, they ought to pay for these airwaves because they have this unfair coverage of Republicans and of conservatives. So at a minimum, can we make some money off of this, please? Crooked journalism should not be rewarded. He said it should be terminated. He goes on to say, and this is what has everybody freaked out this week, despite a very high popularity, and according to many among the great 8 months in presidential history, ABC, NBC fake news, two of the worst and most biased networks in history, give me a 97% bad stories. If that's the case, they are simply an arm of the Democrat Party and should, according to many, have their licenses revoked by the FCC. And he put that in all caps just so you wouldn't misinterpret it. I would be totally in favor of that because they are so biased and untruthful, an actual threat to our democracy. MAGA, make America great again. Okay, so this is where it gets complicated because if they don't have those FCC airwaves, then they don't have distribution. They might actually, they might actually have to stream on that Disney Plus thing that's got sub growth that's like barely keeping up with it. I mean, they're really having a hard time, right? At Disney Plus and some of these other streaming services, they're trying to figure it out. But he may force them to figure it out right here, right now. Americans no longer trust the national news media to report fairly, accurately, and fairly. Mr. Carr, who's head of the FCC, Brendan, wrote to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. Don't forget, Disney's the one that owns ABC News. So these threats are actually pretty serious. And now, if you're Iger, what are you going to do? Do you want to keep Donna? You know, Donna Brazile, look, a nice little pretty picture of Donna. Donna Brazile, who, yes, as the president points out, was known to have given the questions to Hillary Clinton. I mean, for goodness sakes, the woman can't even, Hillary, that is, prepare for a debate without having to get the questions from her friend. That was pretty bad. Like that. Let me just give you an example. I've moderated 2 debates, presidential debates, for the GOP, for Fox Business News, economic-oriented debates. In both of those situations, it was a very closed-off wall. Effectively, everybody that was part of the question-making process, every person from production to editorial, et cetera, to the anchors, they had no conflicts of interest in that you didn't have somebody, for example, that used to work for the RNC, and we had people on staff that used to work for the RNC. You did not have them as part of that editorial gathering because there was a desire to make sure that you kind of batten down the hatches and made sure that people like Donna did not get information that they could then leak out to candidates. And so it was very, very guarded. But clearly CNN did not have the same standard, and clearly this woman doesn't have any kind of standard. I mean, you know what? She's funny. I like her. I've done TV with her. She's amusing, right? But she's a political animal, a political strategist, and don't kid yourself for 2 seconds that she's there as an unbiased commentator or even a quasi-journalist. I mean, she's made it apparent over and over and over again. Let's watch a clip.
Donna, as you've worked in several presidential campaigns, it's hard to wrap your head around a presidential campaign that is playing out in criminal court.
George, I've never been here before, and I never thought in the years, almost 30 years that I worked in presidential politics and campaigns, that I would ever have to figure out some talking points when your opponent, in the case of Donald Trump, is sitting in court all day and not on a campaign trail. So you have very little to react from. And what I see coming from what I often refer to as the messaging points from the Democrats is, hey, go ahead and point out what Joe Biden is doing for the American people, how he's lifting people out of poverty, how he's providing jobs, getting industries back on their feet, and don't get into the salacious, lurid details of this court case. And that's been great. I went out and bought a National Enquirer because I thought...
Just get into all the great things that Joe Biden, that was before they decided they couldn't run Joe Biden, right? All the great things that Joe Biden's doing for our economy. Again, go back to Brandon's letter. Americans no longer trust the national news media to report fairly. Okay, here's why this is an issue. And for some of you who watch the show, you've heard me say this before. So basically, ABC is the hub, right? ABC News, ABC, the network is the hub. And they have all these affiliates all across the country. And the affiliates have relationships where they pay for programming. And so they're actually paying for shows like this. And they're paying for The View. And they're paying for, any of the entertainment primetime shows that they have going on. But the affiliates, it's not fair to them because they're looking at these deals and they're like, I'm an ABC affiliate, but what does that get me these days? I mean, nothing because nobody wants to watch the shows that are on ABC. And so, hey, why not just fill the time with something on Sunday morning that maybe is a local news program? Or what about the 11 a.m., whenever it's on, The View? Why not fill that with a local news program? Because then your local viewers would trust it more. And by the way, the affiliates wouldn't have to fork over all that money. So if the FCC were to say, we're not going to allow for you to have these airwaves, they'd have to lose all those affiliates. There's 200 and some on at least of them. They actually only own and operate. Last I checked, about 7 of them. They have one in New York, they have one in San Francisco, and and so on and so forth. But the majority of those ABC affiliates all over the country are independently owned, and they don't really want to have to fork over all the big bucks, for Donna and for Georgie Poo and The View. Can you blame them? I mean, really and truly.
Donald Trump is something totally different.
Chris, I think you identify the tariffs as the number one issue. Liberation Day, probably the most consequential day of the first 100 days. Is there an exit strategy for Donald Trump on this? We heard Reince Priebus say basically he's going to double down, but can he make this sort of series of deals that limit the damage?
Well, it depends on what those deals look like, George. And I will tell you that if you look at the reaction of the rest of the world, the biggest problem is that the world now sees us as an unreliable partner.
Right.
And Donald Trump, I believe, misevaluated that. I think he thought he could come in and bully them and just say, we're the biggest economy in the world, and you may not like what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. What he didn't count on was the effect it's had on the bond market as well. And the problem there is that we're now looking at a real potential for stagflation, to have an economy that is in recession, which we're 1 quarter towards that now. We had recessionary report
I'm going to
last
jump
quarter.
in just
the
because
job market
this
was
is
pretty-
obviously what I do, and you guys know that I have 76 Research. I do encourage you to go over to 76 Research and get my 76 Research newsletter where we talk about all this stuff day in and day out. In fact, we just published a piece just last night on gold, and I've been pretty bullish on gold for some time. I tell you to take this all with a grain of salt and read all the disclaimers at 76 Research, but I have my sort of long-term macro reasons for believing that, which are varied, and we get into in the piece. My point, however, in terms of are we going into a recession right now, as Chris Christie would like you to believe? I mean, what, they all want a recession? Is that the idea? It kind of feels that way, because then, maybe that takes Trump down, and he's clearly not on Trump's team. I'm looking at the market still, and I know yesterday was a little bit of a wavery day, but we're doing okay. And the market overall is a very good indicator of what is to come. We've seen the S&P and NASDAQ rising today, in part led by Alphabet after the antitrust ruling. And so, there's not a lot there for you to say, okay, Armageddon is upon us, but you listen to these shows and Armageddon is upon you. And this is why you've got Brendan Carr saying, hey, nobody trusts you. And then you got George Stephanopoulos over there looking like, he's miserable. I mean, of course he is miserable. He's miserable because he had to give Trump an apology. He's miserable because his network had to pay $16 million to negotiate that settlement after he had libeled the president, after being told by his producers, no, this is not accurate. You can't actually say that. And he did it anyway. So there's, how shall we say, there's a discontent among the talent, and there's this tension between the executives that are, still trying to make a living over there, and the talent that gets these big, sized contracts. And so they don't quite have the incentive. I mean, what do they care about ratings? They don't care until their next contract comes around. A lot of these contracts are 3 to 5 years. So maybe you get rid of them and you just write it off. You just take it as an expense. Okay, we got rid of Georgie Poo and he's gone. And now, of course, he's the hardest working man in showbiz. They got him on all the time. He's doing GMA. He's doing This Week with George Stephanopoulos. I mean, he's all over the airwaves. He must really like being on TV. But I don't know if he's going to be on that much longer. I think that the network is being faced with some really tough decisions, and they're realizing that they cannot continue on as they had been doing with this total bias all the time. And as a result of that, hey, you got competition from the likes of, what do you know, the Trish Regan Show. Guess what, guys? Number 85 in top 100 podcasts this week. Not bad, right? And we're going to keep climbing. We want to get up into the top 10. So do your part, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. I look over at The View, for example. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I don't know if it's really coming back. You saw Howard Stern had to delay his return to the airwaves. I don't know if this show, I mean, I guess it should theoretically be coming back after Labor Day, so we're getting close to that moment. Is it really going to last? You have a problem when the Media Research Center does an investigation, if you would, or an overview of all of the people that you've had on your show. And what do they discover? 102 liberal-leaning guests in 2025 and not a single conservative. I mean, we're into September, okay? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. 9 months, and you haven't had one conservative. I mean, after the presidency was won, both in the popular vote and in the Electoral College, by Donald Trump. I mean, haven't the people spoken? The closest you got to it was, remember when Schwarzenegger came on? Remember when Schwarzenegger came on and he kind of let Joy Behar have it because he said, you know what, if you come to this country and you're an immigrant, I actually think you really ought to be somewhat grateful. I would say this, I mean, I can't believe that they haven't been able to put anyone on except for Arnold. And let's face it, Arnold's not really, dare I say, conservative, right? I guess he sort of ran as a conservative at one point. But let me show you what he said. It was actually kind of spectacular to watch because Joy Behar didn't know what to do. She's like, who booked him? Here we go.
You're an immigrant in this country. Yeah. Did you have a visceral reaction to what they're doing, what ICE is doing when you see the videos of it?
Well, I tell you, you said that the immigrant, I'm so proud and happy that I was embraced by the American people like that. I mean, imagine I came over here with the age of 21, with absolutely nothing. And then to create a career like that. I mean, in no other country in the world could you do that. Every single thing, if it's my bodybuilding career, if it's my acting career, becoming governor, the beautiful family that I've created, all of this is because of America.
That's true.
And so this is why I'm so happy to see firsthand that this is the greatest country in the world, and this is the land of opportunity. And I think because I'm such a proud American and a proud immigrant that came to America, I was asked to do, on July 4th, a big speech, the keynote speech at Mount Vernon, where George Washington was laid to rest, and where he lived and all that, to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America, the existence of America. And I will be doing the speech there. They asked me because I'm an immigrant, and there will be 7,000 some people there, and there will be people that will be sworn in and will become citizens that day.
That's great.
So it's really a great celebration. And this is what this is all about, is to celebrate people becoming Americans and coming to America and all that. And so I just think the world of the great kind of a history that we have with immigrants in America. But the key thing also is at the same time that we got to do things legal. That is the important thing, you know. So you got to do things legal, and those people that are doing illegal things in America and that are foreigners, they are not smart. Because when you come to America, you're a guest, and you have to behave like a guest. Like when I go to someone's house and I'm a guest, then I will do everything I can, keep things clean, and to make my bed and to do everything that is the right thing to do, rather than committing a crime or being abusive or something like that. So that doesn't really work in this country. So I think the important thing is when you become an immigrant, to think about, okay, I go to America because I want to use America for the great opportunities that America has in education, in jobs, creating a family, all of those kind of things. Then you have to think about, okay, if I get all of those things from America, then I have to give something back. You have a responsibility as an immigrant to give back to America and to pay back to America and to go and do something for your community for no money whatsoever. Give something back to after-school programs, Special Olympics, or whatever it is. Make this country a better place.
That's awesome. And you know what? It was worth playing in its entirety because how often do they have it's somewhat conservative guest on the show? Never. Okay, that's like the biggest thing that happened all year, okay, on The View. The biggest moment when Joy Behar got put in her place because somebody actually talked a little bit of sense. Well, this liberal bias is getting called out, and it's going to be a problem now at ABC. So the Media Research Center did this study. Meanwhile, there's a new survey, Daily Mail reporting on this one, brand new survey out that's looking at bias in the media, looking at likability in the media, specifically in the sphere of daytime talk. And guess what? No surprise. No one likes these ladies. No one. In fact, in terms of bias, they were at the bottom of the barrel. And then guess what else? They are the most loathed. Nobody likes them. They are the most hated talk show hosts, according to this new survey power list from Daily Mail having the exclusive on it. So again, if I'm an executive, and I'm running the shop, I say, wait a second, why is this costing me this much money? And I got this darn live studio audience on top of them. You guys can't even find a single conservative to book on your show. The closest you can get is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And thank God at least somebody sounded like they made some sense. You see where this is going. It's too expensive. No one trusts it. Back to what Brandon Carr was saying in his original letter back in December of 2024 to one Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. No one trusts your news. You got affiliates around the country saying, give us the time back, give us the time back. We want to be able to run our own version of The View and actually talk about local issues that are important to us on the ground. And so this, ladies and gentlemen, is another example of a show very, very much in trouble. But don't take it from me. Listen to Brandon.
First of all, who tried to overthrow the government on January 6th?
Wait, let me think. Who
was that again? That was not Obama. The thing about him is that he's so jealous of Obama because Obama is everything that he is not.
Yeah.
Trim.
Yeah.
Smart. Handsome.
Happily married.
And can sing Al Green's song, Let's Stay Together, better than Al Green.
Yeah.
And Trump cannot stand it. It's driving him crazy. Jealousy is not green is not a good color.
That from yesterday. Who knows what happens today? The White House chose to respond to that. And this is what they said. Joy Behar is an irrelevant loser suffering from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. It's no surprise that The View's ratings hit an all-time low last year. She should self-reflect on her own jealousy of President Trump's historic popularity before her show is the next to be pulled off air, end quote. Is The View now in the crosshairs of this administration?
Look, it's entirely possible that there's issues over there. I mean, again, stepping back, this broader dynamic, once President Trump has exposed these media gatekeepers and smashed this facade, there's a lot of consequences. And I think the consequences of that aren't quite finished. And look, The View's got a lot of challenges there. It wasn't that long ago, I think one episode.
Okay, I just have to stop him. You heard him say that. Like, he's trying to be careful, but he said he thinks the consequences of that are not quite finished. Translation, you guys can lose your FCC license. Continue.
One show alone, they had to stop, interrupt the show, and read 4 separate legal notices to try to avoid legal liability. So I'm not surprised to hear people saying that their ratings are struggling.
Wow. Sir, where does this end then?
Look, I think we need a course correction. You know, it's time for America's legacy broadcasters to return to promoting the public interest. And just recently, Skydance, which is looking to acquire CBS, wrote letters to the FCC committing to serious change, to trying to root out bias, to putting in place an ombudsman that would address these issues, to returning to unbiased, trustworthy journalism. That's where we have to go. And I think we're getting some wins along the way. It's trust but verify at the end of the day. You know, we're not where we need to go. But I think this legacy media really needs to reorient, or they're going to continue to run into issues like Colbert, where it just doesn't make economic sense to run a partisan circus.
No, it doesn't. And by the way, the president is out attacking CBS on a day when, by the way, the Skydance merger has gone through. That $8 billion merger has happened. CBS News is now going to be under Skydance. And you can expect a lot of changes there as they try and basically prepare for this new media era. But how do you do it when you got people that are so entrenched in an old way of thinking, not just in terms of the business itself, but in terms of the editorial. And that's where they are right now. So ABC is looking at the threat of possibly losing its broadcast license. If that happens, they lose distribution. If that happens, they're effectively out of a business unless they want to say, go stream on YouTube, or in their case, it would not be that way, right? Because they got Disney Plus, they got other aspirations. Donald Trump may help that along and force that along sooner than they had anticipated. We've written on Disney, we've written on the stock price and whether or not it's a worthwhile valuation for you guys to be looking at. I encourage you to get 76 Research, my newsletter. Take a look. These are the portfolios there, and this is the most recent for the month ending 7/31/25. You can see lots of great top performers there. The reality is this: Disney has a lot of work to do. ABC is just the beginning. The DEI stuff is one thing. The changing media landscape is another. The fact that nobody can afford to go to Disney World because it costs a fortune and you'll wait in line all day long. All of these things are a problem, a serious, serious problem for Disney.